The origin of tarot cards has been shrouded in mystery because of their cryptic numeric values and allegorical imagery. Their history includes a vast range of influences from various cultures and religions. The tarot has evolved through the centuries, adapting to serve different purposes. In 1781, the French-Swiss occultist Antoine Coeur de Gébelin published in his massive work, The Primitive World, his idea that the tarot was actually an ancient Egyptian book of arcane wisdom. In the 18th and 19th centuries, most Western occultists believed all esoteric knowledge derived from the Egyptian Book of Thoth and was inherited by Romani people. First and foremost, there is no evidence to support the notion that the tarot has an Egyptian lineage. The English term gypsy for Romani is an abbreviation of the adjective Egyptian. This misnomer owes its existence to the medieval belief that the Romani were itinerant Egyptians. However, genetic and linguistic findings reveal that the Romani migrated out of northwestern India and Pakistan in the 6th century CE. They are a branch of the Indo-Aryan ethnic group called Dam and are most closely related to the tribes living in the Indus Valley of northern Pakistan. The Romani brought their oral tradition and divination methods from the Indus Valley to Europe, which gave rise to Cartomancy from the 14th to the 18th century. As a matter of fact, the history of tarot cards extends far back to ancient China and India. In the 2nd millennium BCE, the Chinese would carve symbols and inscriptions onto ox scapulae and turtle plastrons. They were regarded as oracle bones and used for soothsaying. The I Ching is the oldest divination text in the world. Archaeological evidence shows that by the 10th century BCE, Chinese divination had become centered around Cartomancy, the production of seemingly random numbers to determine divine intent through the use of a bundle of stalks of the yarrow plant. The I Ching was read as a coding system in which the symbolic function of the hexagrams provided the ability to understand both the microcosm and the macrocosm. The Chinese word for metaphysical is Xing'er, which roughly translates to mirror of the cosmos or as above, so below. The more practical I Ching coins became widely used in the 7th century and are still popular today. At the same time, high-quality paper and the first banknotes were being developed and produced by Tang Dynasty paper mills after 5 centuries of experimentation, since the eunuch Cailun had inaugurated the paper-making process by 105 CE with the use of tree bark, hemp waste, old rags, and fishnets. The first playing cards in China were actual paper currency, which doubled as both the tools of gaming and the stakes being played for. They were soon substituted by cards with numbers and symbols, and new games were created, such as Ma Diao and Sissipai. Shortly thereafter, their divination potential was explored as well. Unlike gold and silver coins, which as raw materials have intrinsic value, paper money's real power is merely symbolic, as it would be utterly useless on a deserted island. Hell money, also known as joss paper, is buried in various Asian funerals or made into burnt offerings in ancestral worship to ensure that the spirit of the deceased has lots of good things in the hereafter. Hell money is printed to resemble legal tender banknotes, but also bears an effigy of the Jade Emperor, Lord of the Afterlife. Fortune sticks have been a popular method of divination in East Asia for almost 2,000 years. The prediction begins with a tube, storing 100 numbered sticks. The querent addresses a question to a deity and tips the tube until one stick falls out. The number on that stick will correspond to one of the 100 cards, each carrying a different response. In most cases, to confirm the validity of the prognostication, the querent shall pick up and toss a pair of pod-like wooden crescents called jiaobei. Each of these small wooden blocks is convex on one side and flat on the other. A successful answer requires one flat and one convex side to be facing up. The Mongol expansion throughout the Asian continent from 1200 to 1360 helped bring political stability along the Silk Road. John of Pian del Carpine was the author of the first important Western account of the Mongol Empire. As an apostolic legate, he bore a letter from the Pope to the Great Khan during a trip to Karakoram from 1245 to 1247. The Mongol diplomat Rabban Sauma returned the visit, traveling to the courts of Europe in 1287 and 88. Marco Polo returned to Venice in 1295 after spending 24 years in Asia with his father and uncle. His account of the Orient provided the Europeans with a clear picture of Asian beliefs and customs, including money, games, rituals, and fortune-telling. In the 13th and 14th centuries, crusaders and inquisitors experienced great success prosecuting Gnostics, heretics, and Jews, mostly in France and Spain. In Italy, it was the high period of scholasticism, which saw the recovery of Greek philosophy. Powerful rulers gathered men of knowledge into their courts as a sign of their prestige. Some of them were astrologers such as Guido Bonatti, Peter of Abano, and Blaise of Parma. Others were alchemists like Peter of Taranto and Peter Boni. Thaddeus Alderotti was the most famous professor of medicine in 13th century Italy. His student Peter Torrigiano delved into Galen's theory of the four bodily fluids with a special eye to blood. Hillel of Verona was a Talmudist who translated a number of treatises on medicine by Hippocrates and Galen. Menahem of Recanati devoted the chief part of his writings to the Kabbalah and the Torah. As many as 10 universities were founded in Italy in the 13th and 14th centuries. The Divine Comedy is widely considered the most important poem in the Middle Ages. Its author, Dante Alighieri, is known for establishing the use of the vernacular in literature at a time when most poetry was written in Latin. Dante was born in 13th century Florence and lived in an Italy of substantial literary and philosophical contact with Asian civilizations. Allegory in the early Middle Ages was a vital element in the synthesis of biblical and classical traditions. A set of miniatures modeled on Chinese playing cards, combining mystical, alchemical, and Kabbalistic imagery, became the prototype for what would be called a tarot deck. By the 13th century, the Italian cities of Fabriano and Bologna were well-established paper-making centers. The woodblock printing technique was transmitted to Europe along the Silk Road, and by 1400 was being used for old master prints and decks of cards. The French and Swiss governments promptly issued ordinances on gaming to keep card plays in check. The church too frowned upon playing cards, not least for their occult contents. Italian teachers of mathematics and philosophy would often employ specialized decks of cards as a sort of flashcards to help students visualize and memorize key elements and concepts. In an attempt to trivialize or conceal the tarot's esoteric significance, some began to dub it minchiate, which is Italian for hogwash or poppycock. Another byname was naibi, derived from the Hebrew and Arabic term nabi, meaning oracle. Finally, the rather enigmatic epithet tarot, short for tarocchi, sounded most appropriate and seemed to stick like glue on account of its multiple meanings. To begin with, Taro is a river which flows past the city of Parma into the Po River in northern Italy. The Taro River Valley was of strategic importance during the Middle Ages, as it was traversed by the pilgrim route connecting Canterbury, England, to Brindisi, Italy, via France and Switzerland. Jews, Cathars, and alchemists would often meet there to exchange goods and information. The Italian word tara, derived from the Arabic tarha, means idiocy, waste, or rubbish, and it was used as a disparaging term for gaming and divination. However, the Sanskrit word tara or taraka means star and is also the name of the most ancient Asian goddess, worshipped by Hindus and Buddhists alike. She personified the celestial spheres, the evolution of humankind, and the various paths to liberation. She is known as Tuolo in China, Daraehe in Mongolia, Dalma or Skarma in the Himalayas, and Taro in northwestern India and Pakistan. Further west, she morphed into the Semitic goddess Ishtar and her male counterpart, Atar, the Hellenistic goddess Astarte, and the Kabbalistic demon Astaroth. In spite of being demonized and associated with gambling dens throughout Europe, tarot cards became appreciated by the nobility of northern Italy, and at least 15 decks were commissioned by Philip Visconti and his successor, Francis Sforza. Some of these precious cards portrayed members of the Visconti family, who ruled Milan from 1277 to 1447. The Visconti family wanted to convey the message that the tarot serves more as a vehicle for self-reflection than a form of incontestable fortune-telling, and as such, it allows the querent to see him or herself as if looking in a mirror. If you like my video, please click the like button below and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.